Where'd you go? There he is. Hello, you guys. There we go. Well, hello and welcome to Not Quite Scholars. A podcast by three knuckleheads. Just trying to understand the Bible and explain it to the best of our ability. We are your hosts today. I'm John Klein.
I am Timothy Tibbles.
Yes, he is. We're doing some new setup stuff today, so let us know if anything can be better or if something looks a little weird, or if the sound is a little off. Just let us know. But today, Brock messaged us last minute. Kind of last minute. I mean, a couple hours ago, said he couldn't be here. So the topic that we were going to discuss, we're having to change a little bit. We're talking today just about your guys' topics. If anybody has a topic that they have always wondered, or just a quick, easy discussion topic, even just whatever. Anything that's on your guys' hearts, anything that's on your minds, hit us up and let us know in the chat what you got. But we're gonna be looking at Reddit as well, just some random questions on there. I don't know. What do you got, Tim?
So before the show, we were kind of talking about what we wanted to talk about tonight, and we were looking at, let's talk about tattoos.
Oh yeah,
because it's
a fun,
it's
easy
becoming
discussion.
more. Yeah, it is, or you might think so. It's becoming more and more common for Christians to have tattoos. It's becoming more and more common for
I have
Christians
several
to believe. Yeah, it's becoming more and more common for Christians to believe having tattoos is okay. I am not going to give away my position yet intentionally.
Yeah, I think I know your position.
Probably. I mean, we're pretty good friends, so I'd be shocked if you didn't. But for our listeners, for our viewers, I'm going to intentionally withhold that for the time being.
That's fair.
So growing up in the Christian household that I did, in the middle of the Midwest, Oklahoma, same area as you, tattoos in the Bible Belt are generally quite frowned upon,
Very.
as you can well attest to. And so prominently, the main sort of biblical argument that these Christian pastors, grandparents, whatever,
you cut out every once in a while, just left to let you know, so maybe keep the mic a little closer.
Closer. Is this better?
That's much better, actually.
Cool. So the main sort of text that these Christians, namely these older Christians, and a few younger ones that have a problem with it, will use is Leviticus chapter 19, specifically verse 28. So I'm just gonna read verse 26 through 30 of chapter 19 and kind of go over some of the context and all of that fun stuff as I am known to do. It's what I like to do. So Leviticus chapter 19 verse 26. You shall not eat any flesh with the blood in it. You shall not interpret omens or tell fortunes. You shall not round off the hair on your temples or mar the edges of your beard. You shall not make any cuts on your body for the dead or tattoo yourselves. I am the Lord. Do not profane your daughter by making her a prostitute, lest the land fall into prostitution and the land become full of depravity. You shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord. Right. So every sort of like paragraph of this text ends with "I am the Lord." Right. These texts are specific instructions to the Israelites of how to live holy lives. And so this section of text, right, chapter 19, verses 19 through 37, is titled "You shall keep my statutes." Verses 1 through 8 is titled "The Lord is Holy," verses 9 through 18 is titled "Love Your Neighbor as Yourself." Some of these titles are a little arbitrary, right? They're given based on whatever committee makes this translation, right? I like to read from the ESV, as I think we've established in previous episodes. But so like that's kind of where we fall, right? Every translation of the Bible is to some degree a interpretation.
Yeah.
Like you can't really get around that.
Yeah. No.
I'm gonna pause there and let you kind of share any thoughts you may have so far, because I don't want to just take up the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's another reference in the Bible where God talks about treating your body as a temple, right?
Yeah.
In that, what my understanding and my research has led me to the conclusion of is that was always in reference of really nasty stuff that they were doing with their bodies, like voodoo and just nasty ritualistic things that they were doing with tattoos and piercings and stuff. Now, I also have piercings, I've got gauges, but and so throughout the Bible we see this theme in the Old Testament that don't touch anything that is unclean. Don't do anything that is unclean, because then it will make you unclean. But with the arrival of Jesus, right, he is the Redeemer. He is the one who has cleansed us. He is the one who has it is a whole new idea in Judaism. It was this whole new idea in Judaism that, now we can be cleansed. Right? Now, obviously, there were sacrifices, there was stuff that, to atone, right? But this idea of making unclean things clean was totally new with the arrival of Jesus, right?
Right.
And so the idea of these negative connotations that are associated with certain things, right? Tattoos, piercings, stuff like that, we as Christians can come in bearing the Holy Spirit and redeem those things. Right?
Right.
So
like the idea being, specifically in this text of Leviticus or this text you referenced, right? It's 1 Corinthians, 6, right? Verse 19. Or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, for you were bought with a price, so glorify God in your body, right? So people will take that to being like, oh, you're getting tattoos, you're desecrating your body. It's like, okay, my tattoo is of a cross or a scripture. Like, what do you do with that?
Right.
What do you do with that?
Exactly.
Right? Because like, is it such a hard line that tattoos are bad?
Right.
And that's kind of where I'm going to go back to with this Leviticus text. Got to pull it back up.
And while you're doing that, the response I always give to that is, if my body is a temple, say my body is a building, I can treat it one of two ways. I can treat it like a broken down building with a bunch of graffiti on it, or treat it like a cathedral. And if I'm going to add a tattoo, if I'm going to put something on my body, then I'm going to make sure whatever you put on your body, whatever it is a representation of what is inside that temple.
Right.
If you got a broken down house with a bunch of graffiti, you know what's inside. It's nothing good. If you've got a cathedral, it's beautiful. It's great. You know what's inside, and it is holiness. Right?
Yeah.
Same concept, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. It's like a cathedral wouldn't be half as beautiful as it is without all the fancy architecture. The interior would not be as beautiful as it is without these paintings and these stained glass murals. right? These icons of these biblical biblical stories, of these biblical events.
Yeah.
Sidetrack. We'll come back to it. We'll come back to the icons topic because I've got a lot to say about that too. So anyway, this text in Leviticus, a lot of these texts, right? Chapter 19, the Lord is holy, love your neighbor as yourself, right? Chapter 20, punishment for child sacrifice. Chapter 21, holiness and the priests, right? A lot of these texts are specific instructions to the Israelites saying, hey, do not partake in these things because these things are directly related to the demonic worship of these pagan gods,
Mm.
right? These tattoos are taking place in, this is going to be later in history, but in places like the Temple of Athena, right? Where
Mm.
these priestesses are tattooing themselves in worship of Athena. It's like, whoa,
Right.
okay. If that's
Big
what you
deal.
think tattooing is, I can understand why you would think it's bad.
Yeah.
Like, if you're tattooing yourself in a manner that you are partaking in worship of these pagan gods, which we know to be demons, right? It's pretty solid biblical case. That's what pagan gods are. They're just demons. Then, yeah, like, cool. I'm on board with you.
Yeah.
However, then again, what do we do with things like texts of biblical scriptures? What do we do with texts or things of I'm going to get a cross tattooed on my body, right?
Right.
Or an empty tomb or some other Christian symbol, right?
Right. I literally have an olive tree on my arm. Like,
Right. It's like, okay, at that point, you have to ask yourself, or you have to ask whoever has a tattoo, why did you get that tattoo? If it is truly an act of worship to Yahweh, right, to God, um, then if this text is literal, no, don't get tattoos, then it's not actually an act of worship. It's an act of disobedience, right? Then it's
hmm.
sinful. But if this text isn't quite so cut and dry literal, right? Then it can be an act of worship. You're treating your body as a temple, right?
Hmm.
And once, like you said, temples are beautiful, right? These cathedrals are beautiful. So I'm gonna go look at this text. Um, in Leviticus 19, the word there that they use for tattoo, it is only translated in tattoo in this one specific place.
Really?
The only place. It's the only place it's used to mean tattoo.
Wow.
Um,
Okay. Well, what else has it meant in other verses? Is what I would ask.
Something along the lines of give, right? With us give, give. You shall give, shall ye give, shall give. You shall not make, right?
Hmm.
Make nor print, make nor make, right? Typically, when this word that we translate to mean tattoos is translated something along the lines of make, right? And we run into a little bit of issue because like the Hebrew language puts things out of order or in different orders than we normally do.
Hmm.
Let me go back and look at this in full.
Well, and then another thing, we see another reference to another word in Revelation where it talks about Jesus coming in, and written, and the direct translation of the word used of that is written in his skin. It says that written in his skin will be King of Kings and Lord of Lords on his thigh. Right?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah. It's like,
Is that
sounds like a tattoo to
It
me.
sounds like a tattoo. It does. Sounds like a tattoo.
So then the only other word in this particular text, right? I'm going to read it, kind of a word for word translation. So some of these are going to be out of order.
Okay.
And any cuttings for the dead, not you shall make in your flesh, and
Oh,
any
okay.
marks nor tattoo on you. I am Yahweh, or I Yahweh, right?
Well, see, there
So
it
the only
goes,
other word in
though.
there,
It talks right there at the beginning. It says, for the dead.
bam, there it is.
Right? Context.
or the
Context
dead.
is
Mhm.
so key.
Yep.
Man.
When I went to Bible college, a lot of our college professors liked the phrase context is king.
Mm-hmm.
Context is king. One of our professors said, Jesus is king. Context is also very important, which I like that. But nonetheless, context super matters here, right?
Yeah.
Any cuttings or the dead.
Or the
You
dead.
can't have the back half of this text without the front half of the
No.
text, right? It all goes together.
Mm-hmm.
The only question then is, what does the dead mean?
Ooh.
What does
What do
the
you
dead mean?
what do you mean by that
Okay.
question? What do you mean? Where are you going with this?
So when it says dead, right? You and I know there are a couple different versions of what dead could mean. Could mean physically dead, could mean spiritually dead, right? And the two are somewhat interconnected, but we can separate them out and look at them. But then a third potential option is, like we've already addressed, does dead reference these pagan gods?
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is it referencing the fallen angels who are separated from God and therefore
Dead.
spiritually dead?
Well, I mean, you'd have to think about what Paul meant when he was writing that.
Well, it wasn't Paul. So
Which
this
way?
is from Leviticus.
Oh, this is from Leviticus. Okay, I thought we were still in
Right.
Corinthians.
So
My bad.
no. So this is Leviticus, which is historically attributed to Moses,
Right.
uh, which
Which could
at the
be.
very least, right, it's in question because at the very least, even if it wasn't written by Moses, right, it's still attributed to him for some specific reasons. But at the very least, that means it was edited because the original manuscripts we have are written in languages that didn't exist at the time of Moses, right? So,
Right.
like some people take that to mean that Moses didn't write it at all, or
Well,
he had someone scribe it, or
he
these
did,
stories passed down.
but based off of, you know, Judaism and the belief there, um, he wrote the Torah.
Yeah, and
You know
Leviticus is part of the Torah.
exactly. So there you go.
Right, and like I said, like, there are some dating issues,
Right.
right? But at the very least, it was edited
Oh
at a
my.
later time or translated into, right? But that doesn't mean it wasn't originally written by him,
Right.
right? If I were to transcribe, a book or translate a book into another language, doesn't mean that I was the original author.
No. Yeah. Fair.
Right. So that's all that means there.
Yeah.
But again, back to the topic. These tattoos, these cuts, right? That these
Mm-hmm.
these Israelites, right? Like God told them, you can't do this, which means some of them were doing it.
Right.
Right? It's like a parent. Parents only make rules when kids do things they're not supposed to, right? My dad told me all the time growing up, if you make good choices, I don't have to make rules. And so growing up, I didn't have a lot of rules
Well, there you go.
because I knew what the expectation was. Um, so that's pretty basically, you know, simplified version of what's happening here. It's
Yeah.
God saying, "No, you can't do these things because I have called you to be holy, which means set apart. I have called you to be different. I have called you to live a different life, not necessarily better."
Right.
Um, right? Because then we run into the issue of, "Oh, I'm a Christian. I'm better than you." It's like, no,
Right.
no, 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 no. That's not what holy means. Holy just means
Right.
I am called to live my life um, in accordance with the original structure of which the universe was created.
Mm.
That's all that means. And so, therefore, it is a better way to live life.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I'm better than anyone else, right? We've already discussed this. I'm no
Right.
better than the guards on the opposite side of the fence of the gulags, right? That's
Right.
a book. Oh, I can't remember the title of it. It was written by Alexander Solzhenitsyn.
What a name.
Gulag Archipelago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard of that.
Very, very good. I've read parts of it. It's some of it goes over my head, um, but the basic idea of this portion of him in the gulags, um, coming to realize, you know, all of us are just a couple bad decisions away from being the worst kind of person imaginable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's true.
So,
I go back to in this same topic. I go back to this idea of Paul and how he in the New Testament would try to fit in amongst those
yeah,
he was preaching to. Right?
yeah, like at the Areopagus.
Right.
Like
Exactly. He wanted
used the,
he blended in so that he could better communicate, so that he could better connect with these people. And so
right.
why wouldn't I get a tattoo? If that just helps me connect with somebody else who has tattoos. I mean, okay, perfect example. I was at a gas station, and Brock is a blacksmith. So for everybody who doesn't know that already, but Brock is a blacksmith.
Total man's man.
He's a total dude's dude, for sure. But he's a blacksmith. He goes to like Renaissance festivals and sells like really cool stuff. Really, really cool stuff. But one of the things that he used to sell, he doesn't anymore, but one of the things he used to sell is a little pendant of Thor's hammer. So Thor being the Norse god of thunder, and his little hammer called Mjolnir. You could make that little pendant. He would make these little pendants. They were super easy to make, pretty quick, and put them on a piece of leather. And now you got it.
Probably too.
Huh?
Probably a pretty good profit off of them too.
Yeah, probably. And put them on some leather and then wrap them around your neck. You got yourself a necklace. But so the first time that I was blacksmithing with him at his home, he was asking me like, "Oh, what do you want to make?" I said, I don't know, make a necklace or something. He goes, "Well, I make these little Thor's pendants." I was like, "Okay, cool." So I made one of those, and a couple of weeks later, I was wearing it, and I was talking to this guy at this a cashier at this gas station. Looks at me, he goes, "Oh, are you pagan?" I said, "No, no, I am not.
Actually not.
Very much not." And like
the only thing I know about Thor is from the Avengers
or God of War. But that sparked this conversation. I was in that place for a half an hour, like talking to this guy, and basically him telling me like, "Yeah, I used to go to church. I used to play guitar. Now I worship Baal." And he was like, "But could I come to your church? Like, is that okay? I'd love to see. Like, I used to go. It still kind of intrigues me. Like, is that okay?" And I was like, "Of course it's okay. You can come to church.
Absolutely.
Like, come to church. Let's go. Come on." Like, that couldn't have that would not have happened. I shouldn't say it wouldn't have, but there was a less likely chance that it would have happened if I hadn't have been wearing that pendant that this guy sees and immediately connects with and says, "Oh, hey, let's talk." You know what I mean? Like any other day, if I weren't wearing that, if I were wearing this, right, just this cross, he would have just blown it off and been like, "Meh, whatever, cool."
Yep. Yeah.
God
so,
works. God works, absolutely. And that conversation could have happened, yes. But it was more of an opportunity. That's what I'm saying, right?
Right. So trying to decide how much of my own backstory I want to share.
Fair?
In 2019, we had a family tragedy.
Mm.
I think you know a little bit about this. So we fly out to Florida. I was in college at the time. Fly to Florida, and I had emailed some of my professors, "Hey, I'm not gonna be able to come to class at all this week. I got to go out to Florida for this event, for this thing." It was not a very fun event, we'll say. And I got to talking with one of my professors. His name is Michael DeFazio. Fantastic, great, wonderful man of God.
What a name.
A lot of love in his heart. Right. He's Italian. He's a good Italian dude. And one of the things that Michael said to me after coming back, because I expressed, I'm struggling with some of the events that played out in this tragedy. And he, sits there. I'm in his office, and he sits there in his chair for a second and looks at me and goes, "Not everything happens for a reason. but everything is redeemable.
Mm.
And that I'm gonna cry just talking about this. That moment has lived with me since,
Mm.
and it has changed the way I view the world. It has changed the way I live my life. Not everything happens for a reason, but all things are redeemable, right? God makes all things work for the good of those who love
Mm.
Him. Um, even even wearing something like a Thor hammer that some
Mm.
pagan off the street would recognize and think you have something to do with their religion. It's like, no, actually, it just looks kind of cool,
Right.
right? And so with these things like tattoos, the one caveat being, is this text black and white? Which I'm going to reveal now. I don't believe it to be,
There you
right?
go.
Um, you have to appeal to the heart, or not the heart. I hate using the language like the heart because the heart is deceitful of all
Above
things.
all
You
else.
have to look at, yeah, you have to look at the intentions of this person, right? If it's meant to be an act of worship truly, then it is an act of worship. However, if the only reason you are getting a cross tattoo on your bicep is to rebel against your parents or your grandparents or whatever, or the only reason you're getting a text of a Bible scripture on your forearm is for the attention, then this ceases to be an act of worship. And then if it is not worship, it is sin. It is an act of rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
Because why you do something is just as important as the why you do something is just as important as the what.
Right. Exactly. It's all about the intent behind it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I say, like, the heart is deceitful above all things. Like, you need to examine yourself very closely, especially when making a decision like, or for Christians, especially when making a decision like getting permanent ink on your body. Like, why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Is it truly an act of worship? Is it because you want the attention? Is it an act of rebellion? Right? Because only one of those is acceptable.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Um, yeah, and I have been designing tattoos that I have wanted since I was 16 years old, right? So over a decade now, and I have yet to get a single one for that exact reason,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I don't want it to be wrong. I want to do it in an act of reverence, not
Mm-hmm.
seeking attention.
Right. Right. Soul says you're very glitchy coming in and out. Yeah, we're gonna get him a new mic. that'll be our first purchase for sure.
Is this better?
Oh my gosh, it might be actually.
Just take off that filter.
Oh my gosh, wow, it is better. That's weird. Wait, maybe. Anyway, we'll find out. Pixie Snidget says, what's your stance on tattoos with no biblical context to them, like someone just getting something because they like it? I'll tell you mine. You want me to go ahead? I'll go ahead.
Yeah, you go ahead. I'm going to organize my thoughts for this one.
I, again, go back to what I said was it's all about the intention of the heart, right? And it's all about what lies on the inside, right? I have 2 tattoos that have no biblical reference at all. One of them is a little... I can't put it on screen very well. It's got
What does it say?
it's a little play, like rewind, stop, play, pause, fast forward thing. And it's for my music producing, right? Like I was a music producer for a little while in Australia, and that was a lot of fun. And I got it because that's a part of me. That's a piece of me. That's what lies in my heart. Music is in my heart. And the little play button. I guess there is some. Maybe I was wrong because I did specifically make the play button red instead of black like the others because I was like, I'll never stop.
Yeah, can't stop, won't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop. Well, anyway, the other non-biblical tattoo I have is a little tank. This one's a little easier to see. It's a little tank on my ring finger, and that's for my wife. Her initials are TANK, so I thought this is an opportunity. This is fun. But again, she's going to be in my heart until I die. And hopefully after.
Right.
I mean,
right.
So, it's... Yeah, I have a lot of plans for other tattoos that I'd like to get as well. One of them having to do with my family, but another one having to do with my favorite movie. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't answer that.
So, my general view, I say general because, obviously there are going to be exceptions to this rule. My personal view, can't think of the word.
Viewpoint?
Yeah, my view,
Right.
We'll stick with view.
MJ says it has meaning. It doesn't have to be biblical. Right. Well, mine's not. So two of mine aren't necessarily biblical in nature, but conviction, is that the word you were looking for?
Yes, that one. Thank you.
Thanks, Pixies Ninja.
My personal conviction is no. For me personally.
No on what?
I realize,
no in what way?
No on tattoos that are not
biblical.
That don't have biblical meaning, right? Aren't biblical. That's my own personal conviction. Partially because I know myself well enough to know that I have an extremely addictive personality. And so when I go into something, I go all in.
Oh yeah.
And so you now well know this about me.
Yeah.
And so my personal conviction is no, because from my own point of view, that borders on worshiping that thing.
Ooh,
and I never want to worship something that is not God.
That's good.
That's
good. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Now I say that knowing full well that if I'm going to take that stance effectively, if I'm going to take that stance consistently, then I should not be playing video games nearly as much as I do. I should probably not work as much as I do. I should spend more time, studying the Bible. I should spend more time praying to God.
Hold on.
And I know all of these things about myself.
Because here's what I'll say. When it comes to worship, for those of you who don't know, I'm a pastor. I'm a worship pastor. And I've been, for the past several months,
trying to convince me to move out there.
That too, but
I got it to you before you did.
For the past several months, I have been convicted of the true meaning of worship. Right now, for those of you watching the stream that don't know what that looks like in the church, or what worship looks like in the church, basically on a Sunday morning we come in, we sing some songs that we consider worship songs, and then we listen to a message by the pastor that will hopefully convict us of some things that we're doing in our lives that maybe we shouldn't be doing. But this idea of worship, right? This idea of worship being what we see in the Bible is just glorifying God. The perfect example of worship we see in Revelation, where we hear the heavenly hosts, these angels, surrounding the throne of God, and all they're doing is singing, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come." That is our perfect example of worship. It doesn't have anything to do with us. It doesn't have anything to do with anything other than just proclaiming the greatness of God. Now, this idea of worship, of an act of worship, there's difference. To me, there's a difference between this is going to sound weird, but worship and an act of worship. Does that make sense?
It's like the idea of worship versus the verb of worship.
Yes, like what we do. For example, like prayer, right? We think of prayer as putting our hands together and talking to God,
Right.
you know. But a lot of people don't realize that meditation is a form of prayer, right?
Yeah.
So in the same idea, in the same vein, in the same concept, it's hard for me to say that getting a tattoo is a form of worship. Or is it just something that I like? I mean, again, just like MJ said in our chat, it's all about the intent of the heart. I'm not gonna, just because I wore it, I would consider the same concept. Just because I wore that pendant around my neck didn't mean I worshipped that pagan god. It just meant that I thought it looked cool.
Yeah, for me at least, I cannot stress enough that I am not condemning anyone that has tattoos that don't have biblical meaning. Like, it's not what I'm doing here. For my own conviction is there is a difference in kind between wearing a Mjolnir necklace versus getting something in permanent ink on my body.
Yeah, I guess you're right. No, that makes sense because you can take the Mjolnir necklace off.
Right.
I get it.
And easily replace it with something else, right? I guess the answer to that would be, well, this tattoo can easily be covered up, right?
But it's still
example, there. Right, it's still there, right? Famous example, Dave Bautista. He's a wrestler, plays Drax in the Destroyer in Guardians of the Galaxy. He had a tattoo. I don't think it was like of his friend, but it was like to honor this friend that he had. And he's in this conversation with his friend. Basically, this friend said something pretty derogatory towards the homosexual community, and his mother is lesbian, and so he went and got that tattoo covered up.
Wow.
So like that's an example of getting it tattooed covered up. And it's like, bro, you got to respect the guy for holding to his convictions.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But I think for me, I'm gonna get something tattooed on my body. It needs to have some form of serious biblical meaning, because to get something permanently added to me is borderline worshiping that thing. Like, I've got a couple tattoos that are referencing comic books that I wanted to get for a long time, and still kind of do, but because I want to worship God and God alone, I will not get them.
That's good. I get it. That's my view. I get it. I do. Me personally, I don't have as much conviction on it. Like I don't to me, it's not a form of worship. I love my wife. I would do anything for her. I don't worship her.
No.
But I'm gonna have a representation of the commitment that we made on my finger. There you go. Also, because my ring doesn't fit me anymore, so
fair enough.
Win-win.
Like I would like to. So I'm gonna challenge this idea that your tank tattoo doesn't have any biblical meaning. I'm gonna challenge that.
Oh,
because is my own personal view. Thank God that'd just be super ox. If you did.
Oh yeah, if I worshipped her. Yeah.
If you worshipped her, yeah.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Marriage is intended to be a physical representation of the Holy Trinity.
Oh yeah, fair.
Right? So my marriage between Rachel, my wife, me, is not just the two of us, God. Right? There's a reason we get married in churches. There is a reason that we as Christians hold to the standard that marriage is a institution founded by God himself. It's because he is present in that marriage. He is present in the union of these two becoming one flesh. And so if we're going to take that seriously, I think we need to seriously consider the idea that marriage isn't something that we do as much as it is something that is happening to us. Very similar to baptism. Right? This is going back to my quasi-orthodox closet orthodoxy. Like,
Yeah.
this is the view that the Orthodox Church has held for the long time, thousands of years even. Even the Catholic Church holds to this idea.
Huh.
So by that standard, like, I'm gonna say your tank tattoo
All that
is
about my
biblical.
tank tattoo. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I see that. I can see that. I can see that. Well, I mean, I don't have much else to say about tattoos. I think all in all, closing thoughts on that one is they're fine. It's whatever. Whatever it is, it's a representation of what lies in your heart.
Yeah.
The idea of your body being a temple is true. I mean, people who don't believe in God, who you see, you see a lot of people at the gym who are like, "This is a temple."
Roid rage.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, we got another 20 minutes. Does anybody else on chat have a topic that they'd like to ask or anything to add to our tattoo discussion? What was meant to be like a 10, 15, maybe 20-minute discussion turned out to be like a 45 one.
Yeah.
That was great. I think it was great.
And I did mention I wanted to return to the topic of icons.
Ooh, icons. Okay.
So
hit me with it.
Okay, so for those of you can't talk. For those of you who don't know what an icon is, basically, it's a painting of a biblical story or event or narrative.
Oh, right. Okay. So just to bring it around town, bring it around full circle here. Earlier, when we were talking about this doesn't even have to do with tattoos at this point, kind of, right, in a way. But,
I don't even remember why I referenced icons.
Well, it was because basically earlier in our conversation, I had mentioned how, you've got, if our bodies are temples, if our bodies, we consider them to be similar to a building of sorts, right? You can either look at it like a tattoo. You can either look at it as graffiti on a broken down building, or you can look at it as a stained glass windows on a cathedral. Both of those show what's inside that building, whether it's good or bad.
Right.
And so
it could be a stained glass, or it could be a icon tapestry. Right?
Tapestry. Yeah.
Mural, right. These icons.
So this brought up the what Tibbles is talking about. Yeah, that's right.
The rabbit trail of icons.
Icons. Okay. Hit me with it.
So, a lot of people will see, specifically in the Orthodox Church or the Catholic Church, they will see these Christians who are praying at this icon, and they'll think, "Oh, this person is worshiping this icon." It's like, okay, pause. That's not what's happening, actually. What's actually happening is that icon would be more akin to the cross you are wearing around your neck right now.
Mm-hmm.
Icon would be more akin to the Bible that you are holding in your hands, that you are beating these people over the head with when you're telling them don't worship icons, right? It's like, okay, no, actually, it's not an idol. If you want to talk about idols, we can talk about how you worship the scriptures more than you worship God, right? We can talk about how you have a dozen American flags in your worship center on the stage in front of your crosses. We can talk about idols if you really want to go down that road, but these are not idols.
Right.
I have thoughts.
Okay. So what you're saying is, just so I understand, and our listeners understand, what you're saying is, when people talk about how these people are praying to icons in like the Catholic Church and stuff, how they're praying to saints and things like that.
Yeah.
People are calling those idols, when in all reality they're not idols.
Correct.
Which I would agree with. I mean, it's the same concept that we talked about earlier, a month ago now, about Mary. They're not praying to Mary. They're praying that Mary prays for them.
Right. It's the idea. So kind of extrapolating this more, kind of building this out more. When someone is quote unquote praying to the saints, when we pray to God, we are spiritually talking to God.
Right.
Right. When if I were to ask you to pray for me, I am physically asking you to spiritually talk to God. Now, if I were to pray to a saint, my personal favorite, Saint John the Forerunner, John the Baptist. If I were to pray to John the Forerunner, John the Baptist, what I'm not doing is worshiping John the Baptist.
No.
What I am doing is I am spiritually talking to John to physically talk to God.
Right.
Right. And so that's kind of the idea of what's happening here. These icons.
Not saying we do that.
No.
Right.
No.
Not saying, yeah.
Right. These icons are more or less a physical representation of a biblical story, a biblical event, or sometimes even what's happening in heaven, right? As described in Revelation. Famously, there's icons about the throne room of God, which I find to be incredibly beautiful, and I would love to have one in my home, not to necessarily sit in front of and pray to.
Right.
However, if I were to do that, it would be no different, zero difference between me doing that and anyone else in any Protestant church going to pray at the foot of the cross in their worship center.
How?
They're the same thing. Like, right? Like it's the famous Pam Beasley from The Office. Like they're the same picture, right? A cross is
But they're not
icon.
praying to the cross. They're praying to Jesus.
Correct. The cross is an icon.
Okay, so that's your point. These people,
That's my point.
they're not praying to these saints. They're praying to Jesus
through these saints. Kind of the idea, right?
Okay, so that's what. Okay, I kind of understand.
Right. So if I were to go, I've done this. I'm sure several of our listeners have done this. If I were to go into a worship center right now or on a Sunday morning, right, and they've got a big cross, right, and the pastor, I see this most often in Baptist churches, right? They say, we've got the cross over here. We've got someone to pray with you. Go pray at the foot of the cross to Jesus. It's the exact same thing as if I had an icon hanging on my wall right here instead of Voltron, right? It would be the exact same thing for me to kneel on my office floor and pray to God at underneath this icon. It's the same thing.
Wow.
Right? That's the same picture.
That's a controversial statement.
So, I know. I got some hot takes, and some of them I will never share. Some of them I've gotten in trouble for sharing. Others I have no problem sharing. The cross is an icon. And so what that means is churches all over the world have arbitrarily decided what icons are okay and which ones aren't.
Well, I do think it's different, though. I mean, I think it is. You saying it's an icon, that's one thing. That's fine. The cross is an icon. It's a symbol, right?
Yeah.
I think it is different in the sense of we don't need someone to pray on our behalf.
No.
Right? And that's the concept behind these saints. Right? And in that sense, it is different.
Well, so I'm going to challenge that idea a little bit.
Are you Catholic?
No. No. We've already established I'm quasi-Orthodox.
Right.
I'm going to challenge the idea that we don't have to pray for each other because we're instructed in Scripture to pray for each other.
I didn't say we didn't have to pray for each other. Oh, man.
We don't need someone to pray for us, right? Then why am I supposed to pray for you and why are you supposed to pray for me?
But it's different. They're not around here to pray for us.
Right. They're not physical. They're experiencing life more fully than you and I ever can while here on earth, because they are fully in the presence of God. Right? The idea being, we're flipping the script here. I'm not physically asking you to
Man.
spiritually pray for me. I'm spiritually asking them to physically pray for me. Again, I don't do this.
Wow.
That's the idea.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. All right.
It's a weird thing that like I understand conceptually,
Phew.
and so I can.
This is the second time we brought this up. I don't think we should bring this up for a while.
This is something that like I understand conceptually really well,
Okay.
and can therefore verbalize it in such a way that is probably more convincing than it actually should be. But it's also something that I'm like, I don't think I can get behind this.
Right.
know?
There's just something about it.
Yeah,
There's
like
something about
something seems off.
Something's off. Okay. Well, that's fun. So these last 10 minutes, we'll wrap it up with this. We'll put a little bow on this episode today. Thank you for joining us, by the way. Those of you who did. Tiffany says she wishes Brock was here for this one. He has view on this. For sure he does.
Yeah, we kind of hit that already.
Yeah, we did. He's gonna listen to this episode and not be happy with us.
Yeah.
So in this, all right. As a group, as Not Quite Scholars, we have come together and I wanted to talk a little bit about the future of Not Quite Scholars. So
did we want to do this without Brock?
I'm just doing some general stuff and putting it out to the public to see what their thoughts are. Okay.
Yep.
I'm not saying we're going to do any of this. I'm just saying, hey, here's some ideas that we've thought of. You all tell us what you like, what you don't like. But we've thought about making Not Quite Scholars branching this idea of Not Quite Scholars and doing other stuff in the not quite category, right? Not quite category. So I stream as well, and Tibbles streams as well, gaming, stuff like that. So we thought about doing something where we can talk about biblical topics if we want to, but mainly just some wholesome content and call it Not Quite Gamers. Keep it in the same vein of Not Quite Scholars, in the sense of this is all family-friendly topics of discussion. It's just fun. Just genuine fun.
Safe for your kids to watch.
So we thought about doing something like that, where we have a group. Brock probably won't be a part of that. He's, not his vibe, but he might be. But we have another couple of guys that would probably be a part of that, who'd like to be a part of that. And that would be, we would call that Not Quite Gamers. Now that's just, again, this is just a concept. This is just an idea. We have other stuff. Tiffany could be a part of that, actually. She is a very wholesome person, and she plays some very wholesome games. We're talking about some Stardew Valley. We're talking about, we're talking about some, what's the game that she plays right now? Animal Crossing.
She's in the chat, she can tell you.
Animal Crossing. Wholesome game content like that. So thought about doing something like that. We will absolutely keep Not Quite Scholars the way it is, what it is. And what we're wanting to do right now is make it even more, if that makes sense. Obviously, we're hoping to grow Not Quite Scholars in our viewer base and everything, and we're trying to do some stuff to make sure that we up our quality a little bit. And because we consider this a ministry, we're going to be going to some churches, just content, but maybe some sponsorships, stuff like that. We're really excited about it. The first thing we're going to do is get Tibbles a new mic. Yeah.
I'm literally...
That is a rock band mic. What,
from I got from a thrift store for $3?
$3. What is that, from 2007?
Circa?
Yeah, somewhere around there. we're going to do something like that. We're hoping to not be in my small office anymore. But yeah, stuff like that. If you guys have any ideas or like, hey, we'd love the Not Quite Scholars team to do something like this, that'd be great. Hit us up. You can email us at notquitescholars@gmail.com. You can comment on anything, that we've done or this chat right now. But yeah, so that's just kind of what I wanted to say. We are also just to make everybody aware, we are also talking about possibly moving the day of this podcast to Wednesdays, just for the fall, schedules being what they are, just weird. Everything's so weird. Everybody's kids are going back to school, people got work, craziness. So we're talking about moving it to possibly Wednesdays. That's all I got, man. That's all I got. What was the other one we were thinking about doing? We want to be a little more present on social media for sure. Have some fun video series.
Mm-hmm.
Brock's been talking about eating this fish.
Ugh. Yeah, ultimately, like the dream, the idea creation process, the brainstorming, the idea is more content for you to consume.
Right.
That's mostly what it is. And most of that content would be theoretically, Bible-based content. Things like sermons, content like graphics for sermon series.
I do a lot of that myself for work, so
right. And so that's kind of the idea. We're still very much like, how far do we want to take this Not Quite Scholars?
Mm-hmm. But
how far do we want to build it?
The best thing that we can say is to expand this to reach people. Like, share, subscribe, follow.
Facts on facts.
Seriously. The best form of advertisement is word of mouth.
Yeah.
Yep. We wouldn't have as many viewers as we have now without people talking about it. So.
Right. Yeah. So go like us on Facebook, share our Facebook page with all your friends. Post it in every group you're a part of.
Yeah, and if people are like, "Oh, well, I don't get on YouTube or I don't have a Twitch," that's fine. We're on Facebook. Like it, and hopefully we'll get enough followers and to be able to stream onto Instagram at some point. I don't like Twitter, but that's also
I just deleted my
thing.
Twitter today, actually.
Did you really?
Sure did.
Was there a specific reason for that? Yes or no? We don't have to get into that.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going back to that, my personal conviction on tattoos, right? Spending way too much time on it. The content I was producing on
I don't know.
Twitter is 90% politics.
I don't. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Enough said.
I don't know a single other person other than yourself who spends a lot of time on Twitter. I just don't. I can't stand Twitter. I don't know why. I just don't like it.
Yeah, it's just the idea of toppling idols in my own life,
I got you. I respect that. I respect that. Cool. Well, everybody, we are so appreciative that you decided to take time out of your day to watch us here on Not Quite Scholars. Again, I'm John Klein. This is Tim Tibbles. Brock should be joining us again next week, hopefully, fingers crossed. He had a little bit of an emergency at work today that he had to deal with, so I know half of y'all come here for him, so anyway, if you guys have any prayer requests or topics of discussion that you'd like to add that we can discuss, or if you, like I said, have any prayer requests throughout the week, hit us up. Again, you can DM us on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitch, or you can email us at notquitescholars@gmail.com. So anyway, that's it for me. You got anything to add?
No, that's about it.
All right.
Just make sure you examine yourself in every choice you make.
Oof. Very good. All right. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.